Okay, so Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips, the director of the Hangover trilogy, and War Dogs and Starsky and Hutch, starring Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, are collaborating for the first time and creating an infamous comic book character who we all know from as entitled the Joker, a character who's incredibly mysterious and who loves to absolutely destroy humanity from his anarchic perspective of life. So, it's getting high acclaim, it's becoming a cult film, and it was released last year, but this is my own opinion, and what did I think of it? Let's check it out and let's find out. Joker, directed by Todd Phillips, starring Joaquin Phoenix, or Joaquin, or Joaquin Phoenix, Joaquin Phoenix, yeah. So, anyway, basically, it's about a plot of an introverted guy living in a sort of 70s reinterpretation of Gotham City, and by the time when Bruce Wayne's Batman was a little boy, before his Donald Trump-esque father, Donald Trump, Bruce Wayne's dad, who is Thomas Wayne. There you go, finding my words. Thomas Wayne was a sort of Trump-like figure back in Gotham City in 1980. And one thing is for certain, this Gotham City, the way it looks very much like a film set in the 70s, and it looks incredibly convincing. Now, it's basically about an introverted guy in which society turns him into an absolute madman, who ends up becoming, as we all know, the infamous villain known as the Joker. Now, on one hand, it is loosely inspired from The Man Who Laughs, which was a film made in a German film, in fact, made in the 1910s and 1920s, I think, and it's a silent film. And there is mythological facts that this story of what we see of Joaquin Phoenix's interpretation of the Joker and Todd Phillips' vision of the Joker is in fact loosely based on stories that happened, fictional stories that were written about the Joker, written way back in its time, right? However, is this film any good? Well, yes and no. And the reason is because of basically what I see is a really well made film, and in fact, coming to think of it, it's Todd Phillips' best film he's ever made. Literally, the fact that this is the guy who made the Hangover movies and Starsky and Hutch and War Dogs and Old School with Will Ferrell makes a movie, and Due Date, that really average movie with Zach Galifianakis and Robert Downey Jr. This time he makes a film that is completely out of his usual comfort zone, let's put it this way, right? And it's like he literally has the directing skills to become an absolute, truly great filmmaker. But does the Joker stand out in my own perspective? Well, the thing is, it's a film about a introverted guy who goes mad and just so happens to wear makeup and looks like the Joker. But the truth is, I didn't see the Joker that I know, or at least that we all know in this contemporary day and age. The Joker that I grew up in, or the Joker that I've seen throughout my years until this very valuable point. I admire the fact that this is a different interpretation of the Joker, but I'm just not really convinced that it's about this character. The Joker I know is a confident, charismatic, enigmatic, terrifying leader, basically. He is not a left-wing kind of guy. He is not a right-wing individual. He is there to cause nothing but chaotic anarchy. And that is why I have a problem with this movie. What I see is Joaquin Phoenix doing pretty much a similar movie to the usual Joaquin Phoenix performances that I've seen him done most recently. Because let's face it, this is not the first Joaquin Phoenix performance we have seen him done. And I'm not denying by the fact that his performance is absolutely great in this film. He is really, really good in this film. I still wish that Adam Sandler got the Oscar for Uncut Gems, but it's neither here or there. That's another story. But on the other hand, I feel like You Were Never Really Here and her and Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master, those characters are, and most recently Joker, those characters and Joaquin Phoenix interpreting these characters are all very similar, strong characters. And this just so happens to be another one of those movies. But I don't see the Joker that we know. You see, the Joker is, like I said, this really confident, crazy guy. In a way, the closest comparison I could give to the Joker is Brad Pitt's Tyler Durden in Fight Club, but not as good looking and wearing clown makeup. So, to me, the ultimate Joker performance done in real movies, right? Not the cartoons and whatnot. I mean, not denying by the fact that Mark Hamill's voiceover performance of the Joker is absolutely terrific. The fact that Luke Skywalker, as in Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, did the voice of the Joker, and the Joker from those Batman video games, and the Joker from those Batman cartoons that were made in the 90s and even in the early 2000s, right? That voice is from Mark Hamill. Luke Skywalker doing the voice of the Joker is absolutely incredible, and I found it really hard to believe that was actually him. Even so, as my dad and my mum and even my brothers were like not really convinced that was him. That was literally Luke Skywalker, and it was literally Luke Skywalker, just proving how much of an underrated actor that guy really is. But the ultimate Joker performance remains, to my perspective, Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker in Christopher Nolan's best film, The Dark Knight. And the reason being is because what we have is, even though he really dominates every single scene in that movie, and he is the best thing, arguably the best thing in that movie, The Dark Knight, in my own perspective, despite everything else of its high quality, Heath Ledger's performance really nails it. I will compare to the Joaquin Phoenix interpretation in a second, but the reason is because what I love is that Warner Brothers gave a carte blanche to Christopher Nolan to basically say, we're not going to find out who this Joker really is. We're not going to find out information about his past. We just know as a fact that this is a guy who is only here to cause evil. We don't know anything about him. He's a mystery. He just exists. He doesn't have a past, or there is maybe signs that he might have a past about his, because he lies, about his wife or his father or his, in different scenes of doing interrogation. So we do not know. He basically is full of shit, and in the same time he's incredibly hypnotic and captivating and charismatic, and he's so good that you literally go out and learn one of his lines because of how utterly incredible and really immersive that performance really truly is, right? But this is a guy who exists, who dominates, who is utterly somewhat charming to a certain degree, and utterly batshit crazy and terrifying, right? He's like a real-life Lucifer, and he is arguably, not just in cartoons in general, arguably the greatest villain ever written on on culture, on media and on literature and on comic books, most definitely, right? Which is why, interestingly enough, this character and those actors have got the Joker. This character has literally got 2 Oscars, whereas all the Avengers and all the Batmans and all the Supermans and all the DC characters have got nout. So what does that prove to you? So anyway, so in the comparison to this modern take version of the infamous clown villain, what I saw was basically an introverted man who goes nuts because of society, and just so happens to wear clown makeup. Not to say there were sequences that were absolutely beautiful in this movie. There were some really good sequences, and also just proves how great Joaquin Phoenix is as an actor. There is one particular scene, and there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the film, do not watch the rest of this video. I'm just saying right now. But there is a scene where Joaquin Phoenix is basically laughing, but what he's actually doing is crying. But instead of replacing laughter, he uses that. Instead of replacing crying, he's replacing that by laughter. And the way he does it is so, like, you really feel moved by it, how that scene is done, basically. And that is, like, literally gut punching, and it's raw and it's real, and it really does literally sink your heart when he's laughing but crying at the same time. And the way he does that is utterly like mad, right? So it's scenes like that that really work. And ultimately, the best scene, which literally represents Joker perfectly, is the infamous dance on the stairwell. That dance on the stairwell is crazy, and the music is perfect from Gary Glitter. The fact that Todd Phillips decides to literally insert that music into that specific sequence, and when he's in the elevator and he gives that little smirky smile, and that music playing in the background, to me that represents Joker as a whole perfectly. And it seems like that really work, right? But there is also, like I said, that side of not of me feeling like, no, the Joker I know is the really charismatic, mysterious, villainous psychopath from the Batman comic books and the Batman Arkham video games, and Heath Ledger's interpretation of the Joker, because of the confidence. And this guy's an introvert, and that's probably that's the reason why I'm having struggles with this movie. I see a good film. If it wasn't about the Joker, I would see probably a really good movie, basically, that is really well made, etc. A terrific psychological drama thriller is what I see. But why does it have to be about the Joker, you see? Anyway, there was also a one shot at the really end, spoiler alert, right, concerning the really last scene. I'm talking about the really last shot, not the last scene in the interrogation where Joaquin Phoenix is talking to the nurse, basically, and she's to the psychiatrist and asking him some psychological tests concerning his life and so forth. It's the scene after that when he just starts to do this Looney Tune run, and somehow tonally it's inconsistent and just doesn't fit well with the shift. It doesn't shift tone by its genre or anything, but it just felt really out of place in comparison to the rest of the movie. Also, a scene that well, not really scene, but there is a plot piece of information in this movie that I really didn't think that was absolutely necessary whatsoever, is the connection, spoiler alert, is the connection between Arthur Fleck's Joker his mum is connected to Thomas Wayne, right? And we see a sequence involving a very young Bruce Wayne, and I just don't think that was really necessary. It felt like they were just adding too many answers and too many twists and turns for the sake of trying to feel like, oh, so now that is why that is connected to that, and this is connected to that. So I thought, well, what's the whole point of that if, to me, the Joker shouldn't be a character who is to be given too much scenario and too much information. I think he's a man who should be kept as a piece of enigmatic mystery, and that's what makes him so terrifying. So the fact that we're adding more drama to the reason why, like adding so much plot within plot, especially in one sequence by the end, after he's murdered Robert De Niro's character, right, after a talk show host, which we all know, if you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. Then there's a car accident, and then there's a riot and so forth, right? Then all of a sudden, the scene cuts to these two riot anarchists go over to to Bruce Wayne's parents, and they kill Thomas Wayne and his wife, right? The infamous death of Batman's parents. That was so unnecessary. Like, why is that even plonked in there? You know, for the sake of what? Trying to be like keep throwing audience sense of satisfaction by giving too many answers. It's like Terry Gilliam once said. In fact, the massive difference between Steven Spielberg and Stanley Kubrick, right, and the reason why Stanley Kubrick will likely stand out more so than Steven Spielberg, even though Kubrick has made only 13 movies, whereas Spielberg has made at least 50% of his films are arguably forgettable, and there's many reasons why. Spielberg's films, yes, they are more successful, but they are answers, right? And what I mean by that is that they are given their presence, basically given in one go, and all the answers are there. 5 minutes after the film finishes, you have forgotten about the movie, despite how emotionally poignant this movie is, or emotionally punching that film is. Whereas Kubrick, like 2001, has an ending that nobody knows what that is all about, right? Everything is a question, right? But on the other hand, we're compelled to what is going on, right? And I think that Joker should have much more questions than answers, in the sense of we didn't need to see the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. We could focus more on Joaquin Phoenix's interpretation of the Joker, right, and him rising up to become the clown prince of utter darkness, right, and to become Batman's ultimate villain. But I don't think Batman as a character, or a young Bruce Wayne, or the link between Thomas Wayne and Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck's mum, the connection between that should be necessary. It just felt like a plot forced into a plot just because it wanted to satisfy fans, right? It was crowd pleasing. It felt crowd pleasing, and it was something that just didn't need to be there, in my perspective. It was just answers over answers over answers, and those scenes really were completely unnecessary. But the good news is that it was a well-made movie. It's a well-crafted film, it's a well-directed film, and it's a brilliantly performed film, and the authentic look of the 70s Gotham City that really looks like New York from the 70s is utterly convincing. It does look like a film that was shot in the 70s. So the last shot of the film, with Joaquin Phoenix getting chased around by security guards in the asylum, and then there's that Looney Tunes ending, was tonally inconsistent. The connection between Wayne and Arthur Fleck's mum and the death of Bruce Wayne's parents towards the end was something that was completely forced in and crowd pleasing and unnecessary. And Joaquin Phoenix's interpretation, or Todd Phillips's version of a reimagining of the Joker, I wasn't fully convinced. What I saw was a guy who's an introvert who turns into a madman and just so happens to wear clown makeup. But I didn't see the confident, charismatic psychopath that was Heath Ledger's Joker, or Mark Hamill's Joker, or even, coming to think of it, Jack Nicholson's interpretation of the Joker from Tim Burton's Batman back in the 80s. However, I will give, because of the well-performed performance by Joaquin Phoenix and the direction, etc., a 3.5 out of 5. So, if you liked my video, please subscribe, and if you want to see more, of course, there's so many reviews I've got to do about this film, and I will do a review about this in French. So to the French audience out there, don't worry if you don't understand what I'm truly saying in English. There will be a French version, and I probably will have a struggle to articulate, but it doesn't matter. As long as you liked it, please subscribe. So thank you, au revoir, arrivederci.